Let's review what we know about verbal aspect and then put it together with what we know about verbs of motion. So, in Russian, the imperfective aspect is used anytime you're just talking about the simple act of doing something. Ты читал газету? Did you read the paper? Да, читал. Yeah, I read it. Нет, не читал. No, I didn't read it. We can also use читать, the imperfective verb, without a direct object. Я люблю читать. I like to read. I just enjoy the act of reading. We also use the imperfective aspect anytime that we're talking about a repeated action. So with words like часто, каждый день, каждую неделю, etc. Я часто читаю книги. Я каждый день читаю газету. We also use imperfective for any action that has a duration. Я весь день читал книгу. Я всю жизнь любил читать. Я 3 часа читал газету. The perfective aspect can only be used for a one-time completed action that took place in the past or is intended to take place in the future. Something that you got done. Я прочитал газету. I read the whole newspaper. Я прочитал Анну Каренину. I read all of Anna Karenina. I finished Anna Karenina. Notice that with прочитать, there has to be a direct object because you can't get something read unless there's a thing that you're reading. You can't simply love to get things read. The only time that you can talk about any sort of duration with a perfective verb is when you're discussing the time it took you to complete a task, the time it took you to get something done. Я сделала домашнее задание за 3 часа. I got my homework done in 3 hours. Compare that to Я делала домашнее задание imperfective. Я делала домашнее задание 3 часа. I did homework for 3 hours. No information about whether I got it done. Just I spent 3 hours doing my homework. In a sentence with 2 or more imperfective verbs, those verbs will be describing actions that are simultaneous. Я шла в библиотеку и слушала музыку. I was walking to the library and listening to music. Я принимала душ и пела. I was taking a shower and singing. When we see the word когда with an imperfective verb in the past tense, it usually means while. Когда я принимала душ, я пела. While I showered, I was singing. In a sentence with 2 or more perfective aspect verbs, those verbs denote a sequence of actions, consecutive actions. One finishes before the next one starts. Я встал, позавтракал и пошел на работу. When we see the word когда with a perfective verb in the past tense, it's usually synonymous with the word after. Когда я позавтракал, я пошел на работу. After I ate breakfast, I left for work. Or, when I had eaten breakfast, I left for work. How does this work with verbs of motion? Verbs of motion have directionality as well as aspect, but the same basic rule of aspect applies. The perfective aspect indicates that the result of the action is still in effect. So if you went somewhere, the result of your going is only still in effect if you haven't yet returned. Где Саша? Он пошел в магазин. He went to the store and he's still gone. The result of his going has not been undone or negated. Compare this to Саша, где ты был? Я ходил в магазин. Sasha ходил в магазин means that Sasha went to the store, but that action of going has since been negated. He went, but then he came back, so he's no longer gone. That takes care of the verb ходить and the verb пойти. What about the verb идти in the past tense? Он шел. What does it mean if we say Sasha шел в магазин? Идти can only ever refer to action that is in progress at the time that you're referring to. So Sasha шел в магазин means Sasha was walking to the store. Sasha шел в магазин и слушал музыку. Simultaneous actions. He was walking to the store and listening to music. So, as we see, the verbs of motion that we know have two choices for imperfective verbs, but only one choice for the perfective. We know how the perfective works. It denotes a one-time completed action whose result is still in effect. Sasha пошел в магазин. Sasha has left for the store. Sasha поехал в Москву. Sasha has gone to Moscow. What about the imperfective aspect? Looking again at the three functions of the imperfective aspect in a sentence that only has one verb, we see that the first one is the mere act of doing something with no information about completion or result, or in the case of a verb of motion, destination. For this we would use a multidirectional verb. Я люблю ходить. I love to walk. Мой ребенок уже ходит. My child is already walking. Я люблю ездить верхом. I love to ride on horseback. Я люблю ездить на велосипеде. I love to ride on a bicycle. No information about completion, result, or destination. We also use the multidirectional verb when we're talking about repeated action. Я часто хожу в магазин. Он часто ходил в спортзал. Он каждый год ездил в Москву. For an action with a duration, however, we're more likely to use the imperfective unidirectional verb. Он шел в магазин 15 минут. He was walking to the store for 15 minutes, or he spent 15 minutes walking to the store. Он ехал в Москву 5 часов. He spent 5 hours driving to Moscow. Notice that there has to be a destination if you're using a unidirectional verb. So the decision process for choosing a verb of motion looks something like this. First up, you have to decide if the traveler is on foot. If they are, then you're going to use ходить, идти, or пойти, one of the verbs in the top row here, the walking row. If they're not on foot, if there's a vehicle involved, then you're going to use one of the verbs in the bottom row, ездить, ехать, поехать. Is there a destination? If there is, keep going. But if there's no destination, you must use a multidirectional verb, ходить or ездить. Are you talking about a round trip? If you are, again, you must use a multidirectional verb. If you're not, keep thinking. Is or was the motion in progress at the time you're talking about? Was the person on their way? Yes. If they were on their way or they are on their way, you're good to use идти if they're walking or ехать if they're riding. If the motion is not in progress at the time you're talking about, then you can eliminate the unidirectional imperfective verbs. Is the departure still in force? In other words, is the traveler still gone at the time that you're speaking about? If so, then you'll use the perfective verb, пойти if walking, or поехать if riding, to designate a one-time action with a result that's still in effect. If the departure is not still in effect at the time you're talking about, then you made a mistake back in number 3. You are talking about a round trip, so use a multidirectional verb. Here's the picture of the basic functions of these multidirectional and unidirectional verbs of motion in the imperfective and perfective aspects.